Welcome everybody, welcome. My name is Robert Martin. I'm the Vice President of the National Action Network here in Louisville, Kentucky, chapter. First of all, I want to say, may the veterans have a blessed day today. All veterans, I'm one, so, thank me for my service. Thank y'all for your service. We're here to hear a person speak today that's running for mayor. And I'm going to turn this back over to Ms. Kathleen because she's got the important part of this.
With that, I would like to introduce Mr. Craig Greenberg. We met with him last week. We had coffee with him, so we were able to get somewhat acquainted with him and his vision for the city and so forth and so on. But it was also important that he come and speak to the general body of the National Action Network. And I know we'll still have some people coming in even as you start to speak, but that's okay. And also his campaign manager, Ms. Barbara Sexton Smith, whom everybody knows, who was a former council person for District 4. And now she is his campaign manager. Barbara wears many hats. She's everywhere all the time. So she's here this evening as well. And so those that are coming in, if you can just take a seat because Mr. Craig Greenberg is about to speak. So with no further delay, and also, I want to introduce also Ms. Jasmine, who is here, who also works with the campaign, takes care of his scheduling and all that kind of stuff. And so if you're interested, if you're involved in another organization, or if you want to meet with him at another time, then you need to see Jasmine. Am I correct in terms of setting up a meeting? Do not call Barbara, right? Do not call Jasmine. Okay? They have a organized thing going on here.
So what is Jasmine's number?
Sure, 502-413-1742.
42.
That's the protocol. So contact Jasmine.
And my last name's Jones.
Jasmine Jones. And your email address?
jjones@greenbergformayor.com. And that's GRENBERGFORMAYOR.com.
Okay. We also have water over here, so Craig, if you'd like some water while you're speaking, you're welcome to have that as well, Barbara. Yes. Okay. With no further delay, take it away. Okay.
Well, thank you all so much for having me. It was great to meet with you recently. Kathleen, Pastor Reverend Elliott, it was great to meet with you as well. And it's wonderful to be with you all today. It's also wonderful to be here in a public library. Walking into this building brought back lots of memories for me when I was a child and coming here. And I was thinking, and Barbara and I were talking on our way up here about the importance of libraries and the opportunities for kids and for adults through libraries. And I just had the feeling that there's so much more we can do with not just this library location, but others around the community, and the need for more libraries, which is something that I would love to be involved with. And before I get going, a very special thanks to my campaign chair, Barbara Sexton Smith. She has been such an amazing public servant, not just for District 4, which is most of downtown, and some of the West Louisville neighborhoods, but also this entire community. And Barbara and I have been friends for 20 years. She has been a great advisor to me. She's been right there with me since the very beginning, and it's great to have you as a key member of my team. And I'm so excited, not just about the campaign, but about working together for the future. So I thought I would start with why I'm running, and particularly with the words of our invocation this morning. I'm Jewish, and growing up Jewish, one of the concepts that my parents taught me, that I learned in Sunday school, and that really stuck with me, was the concept that in Hebrew is tikkun olam, which translates into repair the world. It's a simple concept, but that has really powerful and important implications. And that's probably why I remembered it, because it is so simple. And the notion is that in ways large and small, in our personal or professional lives, how can each one of us make the world a better place today than when we woke up? And so that's a concept that has always been near and dear to my heart. It's something that my wife Rachel and I have tried to teach our two boys, Daniel and Benjamin, that we try to live every day. And as I was thinking about my future, after a wonderful career that I had helping to start and build 21C Museum Hotels, which is located here on the corner of 7th and Main, and then building that into a larger business where we had the opportunity to help revitalize neighborhoods in 9 cities around America and create over 1,000 jobs. But what I wanted to do next, the notion of repairing the world and tikkun olam kept coming back to me. And if you agree with me, I think you'll agree with me, that right now our city is in great need of repair.
Could you spell that Tikkun?
Tikkun, it's Hebrew, but Tikkun, and then a new word, olam, O-L-A-M,
Thank you.
is the transliteration to
And repair?
repair the world.
Thank you.
And so I think our city right now is in need of repair. It's in need of unification, it's in need of revitalization, it's in need of coming together and moving forward in a new direction. And that's why I'm running for mayor. Because I know there are a lot of challenges in our community. Challenges as big as we've ever faced before as a community and a country. But I believe that with big challenges come big opportunity.
That's right.
And so the job of the next mayor is really about bringing people together. Bringing people together in an administration from across the entire city, from all walks of life, with vastly different experience from one another. People who, like me, don't believe we need any more studies about what the problems are because we already know what they are. We know what the solutions can be. We need people who can work together to make things happen, that are people of action, that want to be empowered to move the city in a new direction. And I think that involves a lot of new people. And it's not just people in the administration, but working with organizations like yours and others across the entire city. We can do so much more together than we can do alone. Whether it's addressing our violent crime crisis, or really just a larger public safety issues around the entire city, and making sure that everyone, regardless of what neighborhood you live in, feels safe and is safe. We also have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity right now as a city. The city is on the verge of getting $388 million from the federal government. That is a lot of money. It's a one-time opportunity to invest in our city and make meaningful changes on some of the biggest challenges that we face. I think a lot of that money should go into neighborhoods that have been overlooked for my entire lifetime. Should go into issues like affordable housing, where we need over 30,000 new houses across, housing units across the city, so that everyone has safe and affordable housing, which is the foundation of opportunity, the foundation of safety, the foundation of success. Should go into addressing the homeless crisis that we face as a community, and to really moving forward so that everyone has opportunities to succeed. And there will be more money from this new recent infrastructure bill that was passed in Washington as well. So I think we have a truly unique opportunity. One of the projects that Kathleen and Reverend Elliott were telling me about last week is the exact type of project that we have a unique moment in time to make a reality. One that can transform neighborhoods, that can give people jobs, that can create value in so many ways for parts of this community that haven't seen investment for far too long. And their idea might be the whole group's idea of creating a new hotel in West Louisville and making that a reality. One that's created by the community, for the community, exactly. Created by the community, for the community, with the community, that's creating jobs, that's giving people more reasons to come and visit and stay in West Louisville, to spend their dollars in West Louisville, that can create more restaurants, more commercial activity, and is part of some neighborhood efforts to help improve the neighborhoods, which will improve the safety and the economic vitality of not just the neighborhoods, but the current residents who live there. And I think it's very important that as we embark on projects like that, that those be led by people who live in the neighborhood.
That's right.
It's not for people who either don't live in West Louisville right now to tell residents of West Louisville how things should happen, but it's for them to help guide that direction and provide meaningful input into the future investment into the neighborhood, the 9 neighborhoods of West Louisville, and not just those neighborhoods, but other low-income neighborhoods across the entire city that are facing many of the same challenges. And so I know there are a lot of questions, so I'll just sum up by saying I'm really glad to be here today. I really hope to have the opportunity to work with you all, not just on my campaign, but as mayor, because to me, it's about way more than just me. It's about this community. It's about working together. It's about people who care more about public service than politics, people who care about action, and people who want to listen to each other. To me, that's something critically important now more than ever, with the challenges that we've been through over the past few years, and the divisions that we have in our community. We all need to listen to each other, understand where we're all coming from, and then work to bring us together and move the world forward. So thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to answering some of your questions.
How do you propose to stop crime, particularly gun violence? Let's start with that.
Okay, sure. So I think we need a very comprehensive approach to addressing the violent crime crisis that we have in our community. One murder is too many in any city. 200, which is the number that we're approaching here, is just unfathomable. And so I think we should take a very comprehensive approach. We need to sort of 3 areas. One, we need to address issues with our police. We need to invest in programs that support young adults and other adults and to give people more opportunities. And we need intervention programs working with members of the clergy and other neighborhood leaders. Starting with the police department, maybe. Right now, we need to have a police department, in my opinion, that is the best trained police department in the entire country. One that is trained on community policing. One that respects the neighborhoods in which it polices and works with other neighborhood leaders, with members of the clergy, with people who are formally incarcerated to help prevent crime and not just respond to crime. And I think that's a direction the police force wants to go, and that's one that we as a community should go. Part of our challenge right now is that we're over 300 police officers short of a full force. And so they're so strained that they're mostly just responding to the most serious crimes and don't have nearly enough resources to help prevent crime, which I think is critical. So that is something that needs to be addressed, to attract and retain officers that then who are trained well. And we need a transparent police force. We need one that is honest with the people, one that when there are problems, when people make mistakes, we're honest with the community about what happened, and we're honest about what we're going to do to learn from that or move in a new direction. And I believe that with good training, with true transparency, we can then have a police force that is trusted by the entire community that is truly working on preventing crime. But I don't think we can police ourselves out of the violent crime crisis that we have in our community. We need some other strategies that can also support what's going on with respect to law enforcement. And so that's where I think the opportunity for reinvesting in community centers, reinvesting in after-school programs, reinvesting in programs that give young adults new job opportunities, that can provide career training and new training on different talents, whether it's computer programming or whether it's learning the trades. These sorts of programs will give young adults strong pathways in life for good career path jobs that can earn a living not just for themselves and support a family, but hopefully create some wealth as well. And then also there are some intervention programs. We're working again with clergy, with neighborhood leaders, with those who are formerly incarcerated. We can reach out to young people who are most at risk of choosing a life of crime and helping to steer them in a direction for new opportunities in their life. And so I think it's a comprehensive approach that we can use to address the crime situation that we have in our community. And then the long-term solution is addressing the root causes of poverty. Because underlying it all, I believe, are people who are in poverty.
That's right.
And people, when they don't have hope in life, may choose a life of crime instead of choosing a different path. And so addressing those things with whether it's the federal monies that I just mentioned, or whether it's other federal programs, or working together with nonprofit organizations. Together, that's a short and long-term approach that I would use to address the issues of crime and to make sure that everyone in our community not just feels safe, but is safe.
Okay. What experiences do you bring to combat the issues facing our community where trust is needed?
It's a great question.
Great question.
Great question.
Great question.
I think trust is critical right now. It's always important for government leaders, for any leaders. But now more than ever, I think the public demands and has the right for trust and transparency. And so let me just start with transparency. I had a really unique opportunity to serve on the University of Louisville Board of Trustees several years ago. And we started noticing that there were some financial irregularities going on with respect to compensation and other things at the university. And even though there were some very powerful forces and people that kept telling us that we were wrong, or we shouldn't pursue a particular line of questioning or a particular line of research, we moved on because we thought for a public institution like the University of Louisville, transparency was important. And through that process, what I learned, and one of my biggest takeaways, was not with respect to any individual, but that transparent organizations are more trusted organizations. And so when we think about government, I think it's critically important that we operate the government in a very transparent way. All of the government, whether it's respect to law enforcement or every department. And through that, people, I think, will have more trust. We're not all going to agree with each other on every issue. People are going to get mad at the government because it didn't do this or that, or it did something the wrong way. But I think if they believe that the government is telling the truth, that people who are government leaders, when they make mistakes, acknowledge those mistakes, talk about what they learned from those mistakes, and how they will go different moving forward, that can begin to build trust. And so I would start with transparency.
Do you foresee having a clearinghouse for seniors whom often get passed over for rehabilitation monies to maintain their living quarters? I'm thinking that's what, who posed that question?
Me.
Would you pose it again?
Yes, because often we have money coming to the city, and before you know it, 3 days the money's gone. And it's good that we are proposing money as far as new housing, mixed housing, but you have those who are living, especially our seniors, in their golden years and can't maintain where they are. And you have contractors to beat them out of money. You have gentrification as far as people selling their homes for less, for nothing, because their family or their children are out of town and don't keep up with them. And so, we need a clearinghouse for seniors so they can have wraparound programs or someone they can call in the city to help them follow through, and especially as far as them maintaining their homes where they are in the West End.
Good question.
No, that's a great question and a great point. I do know that there are some programs right now that are for home repairs and that there's money going. The problem is it's not nearly enough.
No.
And so we need to do two things. One, we need to make sure that there's enough funding to support the type of repairs that you're talking about so that seniors can have safe and comfortable and accessible places to live. But then we also need to provide the support so that people know where the money is and know where the sources of funding and the sources of contractors for help are. Far too often we have programs that aren't funded to the level they need to be funded to achieve their goal, or that people just don't know about them. So people don't know how to access the services and programs that are there. And so I think you raise an incredibly good point. To me, it's not just all about, I didn't mean to imply it's all about just new units. It's also about existing units. I don't know if you all saw, but there are too many housing units, particularly where seniors live right now, that have been really neglected by the landlord. And in many cases, the owner of the units is the city. Councilwoman Keisha Dorsey recently has really helped expose some of the challenges in some of the housing units in the city. And that's just shameful. The city needs to keep up the apartments that it leases out to members of the community, particularly seniors, to make sure they're in good working order, that they're in good condition, so people have safe and comfortable homes. But that's a great question. I'll continue to look into it, but those are some of my thoughts.
Many have come and gone, and everyone has promised many things and not kept their promises. What will make me think that you won't do the same?
That's a great question, it's a fair question. My goal in life is to be the best mayor that Louisville has had. I don't have aspirations for any other political office. I think 3 terms is way too long for any mayor. I think new blood in government service is important. And so I have a sense of urgency about getting things done right away. As I mentioned, I'm not a particularly patient guy. My wife tells me I'm far too impatient. But I think that's what we need right now in the city. We need someone who is a person of action that wants to get things done, who wants to measure their success in how neighborhoods are being improved in years, not in decades. And so we have a short window of time here, with federal money coming in, with our community being divided, but I believe wanting to come back together and to move forward. And so I expect to be judged on how well I bring people together to work in an administration, to work with nonprofit organizations, to work with neighborhoods, to work together as a community, how well money is invested, how well people in neighborhoods have input on how that money is invested. And I think it's fair. I think on a very regular, daily basis, I should be held accountable to those high standards. And that is my goal, is to meet and exceed those standards to really move Louisville forward in a safer, stronger direction.
Okay,
One other thing, I also will pride myself on being very accountable. I think it's critically important that whoever is mayor is in the public with regularity, that doesn't shy away from problems, that doesn't shy away from people who disagree with him or her, and that is there willing to have conversations with anyone, and that genuinely listens. And I hope that will also ensure that I'm able to follow through by working with many of you here today.
okay. I got a couple that are kind of mirror each other.
Okay?
Mentorship programs, what will you do to deal with the problems of young black males who need mentors? And we need something in place for the younger generation to look forward to a better life. What do you plan on doing to help? What specific types of programs will you implement?
Sure. So that's a great question. So recently when we had a chance to meet there at California Park a month or so ago, that's right there next to the California Community Centers, I believe is the name of the building there. It's a great building with great potential, but totally underutilized right now. And so we as a city need to make sure that community centers like the California Community Centers, but others around the entire city, are funded and have programs that provide enrichment, that provide athletic opportunities, that provide educational opportunities, extracurricular opportunities for kids and young adults, so that they have a lot of opportunities to really pursue passions, to learn about passions, to learn about new things, to be exposed to new ideas, and ultimately to learn more so that they can have a successful career. So I think it comes down to education, enrichment, and experiences through programs, through community centers, and others. That should be funded by the city, that should be worked collectively with the nonprofit community, with the philanthropic and foundations, and other nonprofit organizations to support that. I'll also say that one of the things that I want to do as mayor, which ties into this, is to create a Department of Education. And while the city government isn't Jefferson County Public Schools, it's not U of L, it doesn't control any other schools, I think the city has a unique opportunity to help support the educational life of kids, and to help ensure that Louisville has a phenomenal educational system for kids from cradle until adulthood. And so whether it's working on creating a universal pre-K program, which I believe we can do. Right now, Louisville's on the map for a lot of the wrong reasons. I think we should be going out to foundations around the entire country, foundations that have hundreds of billions of dollars, and asking them to put Louisville on the map for the right reason. Invest in a universal pre-K program in Louisville. Give us a decade. We know eventually we have to pay for this ourselves, but let's give them a decade plan to build the infrastructure, to hire the teachers, to put the program in place, so that all 3 and 4-year-olds in Louisville can have access to universal pre-K. I think that would change kids' lives. At the same time, I think we need to acknowledge that a 4-year college degree is not for everyone. And there are so many ways in life, we were talking about that earlier, I believe, that there's so many other ways that young adults can have good career path jobs by learning trades, by learning computer programming. And so we as a community need to provide support for those organizations in those areas to help give young adults those opportunities.
There's been a lot of controversy surrounding SROs, and Chief Erica Shields has been articulating and been very, very vocal about the need for Jefferson County Public Schools to have its own public safety department. What are your views on that? Are you in agreement, and if so, why? And if you're not, why?
Well, I think schools need
You
to
can
be
elaborate a little bit.
no, the schools definitely need to be a safe place for kids. Bus stops need to be a safe place for kids. And right now, too many kids and parents don't feel that bus stops or schools are safe. So we definitely need to address that. And I think it's a comprehensive approach. It can't just be done by the school system, can't just be done by the city. It needs to be a combined effort, I believe, of everyone working together. You know, part of the challenge here is now SROs have become one of those terms that people say it and mean different things when they talk about it. Having school resource officers that can truly be involved, that can get involved in kids' lives, that can help be mentors, that can provide some social work services, that can provide some other resources to students in need is a very good thing, I believe. But so we need to define what we really mean by that and how we're going to keep kids safe in schools. I'm still listening to various people who are talking about the issues. I think it's critically important. I'm curious for other people's opinions, and you know, I think that is an issue that needs to be addressed with urgency. To ensure.
Have you met with the superintendent?
I have.
Has he given a perspective about, or you're at liberty to share, maybe, has he given a perspective about having a Department of Public Safety through Jefferson County Public Schools?
I think I'll let him speak for himself on that issue, but I think he definitely agrees that kids should be safe for their entire school day, just like I think we all agree we need to do everything we can to make sure kids are safe in their entire lives, not just when they're in school.
Since we're on JCPS, we might as well go to the question of critical race theory. What is your perspective on that? Should we have critical race theory taught in the public school systems here in Louisville, Kentucky?
I think that kids need to be taught about history as it really occurred. My grandparents fled Nazi Germany right before the concentration camps really became extermination camps. I understand from family experience what hate can do. And I think it's important that kids learn about history and things in history that are real, that people don't want to talk about, that people don't want to confront, because I think that makes us all better people when we learn about what really happened, even when atrocious things happened in our past. And so I think it's very important to teach history. I also think it's important that we reduce the contentious rhetoric around some of these debates that are having, and it's unfortunate that we've gotten to this place in society where there's so much tension about phrases that are being talked about on certain networks and things. And so I'm an advocate. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. If elected mayor, would you establish an office of Descendants of American Slaves Affairs? I love to ask the hot questions.
No, that's an interesting question, and I really value the conversation that we've had on that. I mean, I think it's really important to recognize that there's not one community. When people think about one city or one group of people, there's not like one quote Jewish community. There's not one quote black community. There's not one opinion that makes up that all of our communities that we live in have so many different people that come from different cultures, that are descended from different areas, that have different traditions, and I think it's important to respect that. In terms of a different office, candidly, I've never been asked that before, hadn't thought about that before, would be curious for other input on that. But let me think about that.
You got some experts here on.
I'm sure I do.
In that department, they would be more than willing to step up to assist with that. What is your take on the TIF tax?
So, first, the TIF is not a tax.
Okay.
To explain, the TIF is tax increment financing. For those of you who are unaware, recently a program was created with bipartisan legislation in the last session down in Frankfurt that created a TIF district, tax increment financing district, for the 9 neighborhoods of West Louisville. And what that means is that for the next 20 years, 80 cents of all new tax dollars that are generated in West Louisville will be reinvested in West Louisville by a board that's made up of representatives of the 9 neighborhoods of West Louisville, by organizations that serve West Louisville, and by others that have a particular focus on serving West Louisville as well. And so this has become one of those issues that unfortunately has gotten extremely contentious. The options are that there's no TIF, and so tax dollars that are generated in West Louisville go to Frankfurt, and then the legislature in Frankfurt decides what to do with them. Do they want to build roads in eastern Kentucky? Do they want to build something else in western Kentucky? Or do they want to send it back to Louisville? Or the other option is that tax dollars are generated and they're reinvested in West Louisville by West Louisville residents and people who are focused on West Louisville. So that's why I'm a supporter of the West End Opportunity Partnership. Now, I do think there have been valid criticisms raised about it and valid points raised that need to be addressed. When a lot of money is invested in a particular area, particularly an area with a lot of low-income residents, many of whom are on fixed income, we have to be concerned about displacing people who live there.
Yeah.
If you no longer can afford to live in your own home because of development going on around you, that is a legitimate concern. And so there are safeguards in the legislation for current homeowners so that their property taxes will not go up over the next 20 years. But in West Louisville, many people don't own a home, they rent. And so I think that's a valid concern that needs to be addressed. I also think it's important that people be involved in decisions about development that goes on in their neighborhood, particularly when over the past, for all time, many of the decisions have not been supported by the neighborhood. And so I do think there are some valid criticisms. I think there are some valid suggestions as to things that need to be adjusted about that. But overall, the opportunity for new tax dollars generated in West Louisville to be reinvested in West Louisville, to build things like the hotel that we were talking about, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I believe that is the opportunity to make West Louisville a safer, stronger place that gives people more opportunities, that creates more jobs, that will overall be a benefit as long as it's implemented well.
How do you feel about the current budget deliberations that the Metro Council is undertaking? Even as we speak, they probably are getting ready to vote on the current budget that has been laid out. There's been a lot of controversy that it is too top-heavy in public safety and not heavy enough in terms of supporting the taxpayers and the residents, especially and particularly in West Louisville. How would you feel, it's kind of like a two-part question, about some of those monies, we have 388 million through the rescue funds to play with, so, well, not play with, but
To invest.
but to invest. And so, how would you feel about giving West Louisville residents and some of the poor zip codes an allotment of $600 per month for a year until the pandemic is eradicated? If you were mayor right now, how would you deal with such an opportunity like that? Would you be for it, oppose it? Why or why not?
Yeah, I would focus these particular rescue funds on investments in neighborhoods, investments in institutions, investments in building things like we've talked about with affordable housing, addressing the homeless issue. I do think some of the money needs to go to public safety because I think safety is so important. And so I want to see how the new federal child tax credit works out, the new $300 a month per child tax credit, how that continues before I would make a decision on that. But that's what I'm focused on, seeing how that plays out for a little longer than it does before I would support what you just described.
Okay. Lori, Mary Lightfoot in Chicago is looking at a similar issue, requesting or putting out there, an allotment of $500 per month for the residents of Chicago until this awful pandemic for another year is away from us. Because many people, although they received the stimulus, what was the first stimulus? $1,200, and the second one was $600, and then the third one was $1,400. Okay, and I know that Bernie Sanders originally was putting out there the $1,000 per month for allotment for households, for residents all over the country, to support families, child care, and so forth and so on. And so you still didn't say whether you were for it or against it?
Yeah, I'm not for using those funds for the $600 per month at this time. I'm waiting to see how the federal child tax credit goes, and I think right now the funds should be invested in some of the other programs and projects that we were talking about earlier.
I think we have time for a couple more questions.
Yes. Okay, let's see.
Well, one other thing, while you're looking for the next question, you started the question asking about Metro Council and their involvement.
And then, yeah.
One thing just to add on that, I think Barbara, when she was on the Metro Council, did a tremendous job of being accessible and listening to people, and not just waiting for people to come reach out to her, but where she would reach out to the community. And to me, that's the model of leadership that everyone on Metro Council, and I think many people on others beyond Barbara, do that as well. I'm not saying it's just her. But to me, that's the example of leadership that we all need to emulate and follow. And as mayor, I certainly would. I think it's important to not just sit and wait for input to come to you, not just rely on social media responses or Zoom meetings or once every while town halls, but to actually be out in neighborhoods, get to know people, and go to them to seek their input. Because many people, we all have crazy lives, and not everyone has time to provide that. And so I think it's important for government leaders like Barbara did to go seek that out themselves.
$388 million is a lot of money, Craig. Can I call you Craig?
Yes.
Of course. That's a lot of money.
It is.
And a lot of people in West Louisville are still suffering economically. Do you feel that the slice of the pie that the Metro Council is proposing now, and the number's not quite in my head with what they're asking for public safety, but it's very top-heavy, in my view. And I guess what I'm saying is, or what I'm asking, what I'm trying to get to is that, do you see
Is the balance right?
yes, good question.
So,
Is the balance right?
so my understanding is that, of this $380 million that we're
Yes.
talking about, a small percentage of that is going to public safety. So my guess is you're talking about, compared to the overall budget in city government right now, is how much is spent on public safety. And here's my view is the reason.
And I'm not talking about defund the police.
No,
I'm not saying that.
The reason why I support the investments that we've been talking about, affordable housing, addressing the homeless crisis, investing in needed infrastructure and needed new projects in neighborhoods across the entire city, is because I think we can leverage this money. So we talk about $388 million, but I really think we have the opportunity for that to be several $billion of investment. Because when you go to build a new apartment complex, for example, or you go to build a new home that can be affordable, there are other programs that exist to support those types of developments. And so if you take $100 million for affordable housing developments, there are other federal programs that have been on the books for years that you can use that money to really generate about $1 billion worth of investment. Think of how many jobs are created with $1 billion of construction across the whole city. Think of how much new property taxes are paid when you build $1 billion of new units, housing units across the entire city. Think about how neighborhoods are transformed if instead of talking about tens of new houses on vacant and abandoned lots in certain neighborhoods in the city, we're talking about hundreds of new homes on vacant and abandoned lots. And what that would do to definitely to blocks, but to entire neighborhoods, if all of a sudden vacant and abandoned lots were replaced by new, architecturally pleasing, energy efficient homes that were affordable to people who lived in the neighborhood, and that we could take advantage of some of these other programs and the low interest rates that exist. And so to me, that's what I'm focused on, is turning this $388 million into billions of dollars of investments that can help move our city forward, and particularly focus on people and neighborhoods that have been ignored for too long.
All right, here's the kicker. What's your position on reparations?
Well, I think we'll end with where I started. And that is, as we mentioned, we talked about Tikkun Olam, repair the world. And to me, I'm focused on the areas that I just talked about in terms of investing in communities that have been ignored for way too long. To me, that is a very important part of repair, of investing in neighborhoods and people and institutions that have been ignored for too long, that haven't been funded or supported to the levels that they are. And so, to me, will be my focus as mayor of Louisville.
All right, let's give.
Thank you all. And please, stay in touch with us. Please reach out to Jasmine anytime. I'd be happy if we need to talk directly. I'm happy to talk to any of you anytime. Yes.
You did not answer the question of reparations. It's a yes or no answer. Is it yes or is it no?
No.
Well, the
Give
reason,
an answer.
how, if you define reparations as direct cash payments,
I'll
Okay.
explain it to you.
He's got 4
The
minutes.
United States apologized to Germany, to Germany, okay? The Japanese declared war on the United States. The United States paid the Japanese. And we all know what Jewish people have gone through in Germany. I've been to Germany. So why wouldn't you be for reparations if 120 million Africans lost their lives and we still 3/4 of a person in this country
On paper, but not.
on paper? We're in the same position that Jewish people were.
Worse.
So you have to come across and say, I am for reparations. No matter if it's money, if it's hamburgers, if it's cheese, whatever it is. Stand up,
Level playing field.
because the Jewish people are not going to take what they took way back then. The ones that I know.
And they shouldn't.
And that's all we're asking. Stand up for us.
Level playing field.
Okay, three minutes, because just to put things in perspective, this body in here, and also Pastor Elliott here, is the president and chair of Descendants of American Slaves Ministerial Alliance. Many people know me as First Lady of Reparations for Slavery. We fought hard for it. We went before the Metro Council. We teed off Corey, we teed off Paul, and then finally they found out we were their friends and we were just trying to help and just do the activist thing. And, because the old President Roosevelt said to, who was with the Portland Porters?
Hey,
Come on, Brian.
Yeah, A. Philip Randolph.
A. Philip Randolph wanted equity and inclusion at that particular time for, the Pullman Porters. And President Roosevelt said, okay, make you do it. So we wanna make you do it.
Well,
If you're gonna become our mayor, we're gonna be on you.
well, I think that's fair. I think there are definite, I would love to continue the conversation.
Okay.
We can talk
You
just
come
about
back
that, and I
again.
can learn more. As I mentioned, my view is that by investing in neighborhoods and people and institutions, that is an important way to acknowledge the horrors that you have described, which I totally understand.
Don't even touch it.
And,
And don't even touch it.
I'm sorry?
I said that doesn't even touch it, building up the neighborhood and stuff, it doesn't even touch it. What about the
People
individual?
want money
What
and
about
I
these
think-
young
okay,
kids
okay.
out here?
Whoa, we got 2 minutes,
Yeah.
It's a
2
lot.
minutes left for
Yeah, come
GC,
back,
but,
come back.
Okay.
yeah, we're gonna have you.
No, I hear you.
back.
As I mentioned, I'm gonna listen
There's
to
so much
everybody.
more to
Yeah.
it.
And when we don't agree, I will be, I will continue to ask questions to try to understand better, because the one thing that I know is that your experiences are very different from my experiences. And I acknowledge that, and I think it's important for me to listen and continue to learn, and that's what I commit I will do.
It's a national movement,
I understand.
and we're not gonna stop.
I understand.
We're not gonna stop
I understand.
until we get it. And we're closer now to getting it than ever because, Congress, it went through Congress, okay? But we only need, I think it's like 208 people voted for it, and we're only 8 votes short of passing HR 40. Okay, and HR 40 is not just a study anymore, we've gotten past that. If HR 40 passes, then it's just a matter of the committee deciding how they would roll it out. So I'm just, get ready. If you're gonna be our mayor,
I'll be back, and we will continue
we're
the
gonna
conversations.
be boom, 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 boom.
And the one thing I can commit is that I will definitely listen with an open mind.
That's all we're asking.
I will 100% do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for that.